Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
All right, welcome to our debut episode of Uncancelled Culture. And I'm your host, D Webb, and in collaboration with our resident political commentator and my fellow 2A advocate, we got Rhonda Marie in the building. Oh, I keep saying Marie. Rhonda Mary. You need to change it in.
I was about to get on you. I'm like,
Yo,
what?
I want to be like Tina Marie, you know?
Like, why? Why do people want to do that to me so bad? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah, and welcome to this new platform, this new endeavor that we're trying to do, in hopes that, to provide you an alternative to the mainstream narrative, give you a nuanced and knowledgeable perspective from two advocates of freedom who don't necessarily fit the mold of your typical commentators. So, we're trying to do that. And before we begin, I would be amiss if I didn't shout out my KWAZ Radio family. Make sure y'all subscribe to all the shows on KWAZ Radio. Make sure y'all hit that tab, the YouTube channel. You subscribe to all the channels. There's about 8 of us. So we deep now. And lastly, the podcast is on Patreon. Please donate. Of course, all proceeds go to upgrade the show, providing the best content we can for loyal listeners. And also for those looking to reach out, give us some kind of feedback, particularly on this new endeavor. You can reach me at theharshrealitypod@gmail.com. Now, without further ado, Miss Rhonda Mary, shall we get into the topics?
Yes, let's jump in. First thing first, I don't mean to interrupt you or throw you off, but I gotta get you to change the YouTube title so we can get people coming into the room knowing what we're talking about tonight. So the main topic, something.
I got you. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna get you up
so we can get that algorithm rhythming.
All right. And while we're going into that, you want to kind of start the new topic, the first topic we got here, while we're waiting on the topic to change, while we're waiting on that.
So tonight we are going to be talking about, first of all, do you happen to have a video pulled up?
Of the first topic we got here was
we're going to be talking about the off-duty firefighter.
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
Okay. So basically it went viral today and maybe part of yesterday, mostly today. Off-duty firefighter was shot, and unfortunately his life was ended by a woman who feared for the life of her boyfriend that was being attacked. And so,
all right, we better bring up the tab right now.
Okay. Because, we'll show the video first.
All right.
And talk about that.
Cell phone video captured some of that fight between 41-year-old Anthony Santi and 23-year-old Javon Taylor. Witnesses tell KMBC the fight may have lasted as long as 10 minutes.
Get out! My kids in this car! Stop!
Javon Taylor's girlfriend pulled out a gun and ultimately killed Anthony Santi. cell phone video captured some of that fight between 41-year-old Anthony.
All right, so should I go first? I think something happened to my volume. I can't hear you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Yeah. I was on mute. Yeah, the 2A advocate here. Break down what you saw and what you think was right, what was wrong. I want to hear.
So first of all, we only have, well, I don't know if you have the article. As a matter of fact, let's read the article, because what I want to do is give people more context to not just go off the video, right? Let me see if that was included there. So the video talked about it a little bit, but it says prosecutor's office declines charges in shooting death of firefighter, citing self-defense. Okay. The Jackson County, Missouri prosecutor's office announced Tuesday that it will not be filing charges in the shooting death of the off-duty firefighter. Anthony Santee, 41, was off duty on October 6th and was at a convenience store in Independence when witnesses said Santee heard a man disrespect a female cashier inside the store. Santee reportedly stood up for the woman. Police say 23-year-old Javon Taylor became agitated. He went outside to retrieve his gun from his car. Police say there was a fight between the two men inside the store over the weapon. Taylor faces federal felony charges for possession of a firearm. However, the Jackson County's prosecutor's office announced Tuesday that it will not be seeking additional charges against Taylor or against the woman who allegedly fired the fatal shot, citing self-defense. And then this article just goes on to talk about how they are, grieving for the family, how this was considered self-defense, and they've declined charges after careful review. Okay. The woman involved was released from custody last week pending a review from the prosecutor's office. So based on basically what we know right now is the guy, and it's different reports. Some reports tweak the wording just a little bit here and there, but according to other reports, Taylor went into this gas station. He got into an argument with the cashier because he wanted some certain type of cigarettes. They didn't have them. Santee, the off-duty firefighter, goes on to basically stand up for the woman. They get into a confrontation. Taylor leaves and goes to his car to retrieve the gun. To me, it's very confusing whether Taylor actually re-enters the store with the gun, okay? Because this, is really not making sense to me. And then it picks up where we see the video outside of them scrambling. Santee is knocking Taylor's head into the concrete. Okay. His girlfriend grabs the firearm from him, proceeds to, say, "You're hurting him, you're killing him, stop." And you can even hear Taylor saying, "You're going to kill me," or something to the effect of like, "Are you trying to kill me?" or "You're going to kill me." And then at some point off camera, the girlfriend fires the firearm and Santee loses his life. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a couple things to consider here. First of all, this state that they are in is a stand your ground state. That's the law, okay? How you feel about the law is a very different conversation from what the law is and how it currently stands. So based on that, self-defense, seeing the video, seeing that at that time, Santee was in the aggressive, dominant position over this person, banging their head into the concrete. The girlfriend is on camera repeatedly saying, please stop. You're hurting him. According to witnesses, this was happening for over 10 minutes. So with everything considered, they decided to drop the charges.
All right.
I think that it is very unfortunate that somebody had to lose their life like this, but based on the law, the girlfriend had every right to fear that her boyfriend's life was in danger, and she used the firearm to protect his life. People on the internet arguing with me today because you don't know any better, saying, oh, she should have shot a warning shot. Oh, she should have shot him in the leg. Wrong, okay?
Wrong.
Not only is a warning shot illegal in many jurisdictions, that would be counted as a lethal force. And so if a jury, a prosecutor feels like, oh, well, you were so scared, but you didn't want to stop the threat. You were so scared that you were willing to waste a random, bullet in the air. And let alone if it was to hit a innocent bystander.
Exactly.
Right. So based on this information, I do feel like the prosecutor did the right thing and they were in their rights. But I do want to say that it's unfortunate that people lose their lives over such stupid nonsense things. I honestly believe on the front end, both of these parties could have walked away. This seems to be a very extremely ridiculous. First of all, you shouldn't be arguing with nobody over no freaking cigarettes. But
Exactly.
even that, we don't, because it's gonna always start as the little thing. But did the clerk say something stupid to me? Did you get out of hand? Did you say something smart that helps escalated it up? We don't. It's a lot of information that we don't have. And so on the front end, I always talk about de-escalation, knowing how to avoid conflict. Even Santee, right? The guy that unfortunately lost his life because you wanted to be in business that wasn't yours and you jumped out there and you wasn't ready for what came with that. The fact of the matter is, yes, it's honorable to stand up for the lady clerk. But if it was only a verbal altercation with that lady clerk and it was never physical and you escalated it up to being physical, you're the problem.
Exactly.
You're the problem. As long as that man, you can talk all you want. You know what I mean? That it's a free country. You can say what the heck you want. You can talk till you blue in the face. But to help escalate this up to a physical altercation when you could have just let them talk, and even if you had to stand in between them, and or even if you had to call the authorities without getting as involved and allowing this to turn into a physical fight. Because the moment it turns into a physical fight, now it's something different. And now you're working your way up towards the grounds of self-defense. And that's what we saw happen.
Exactly. I think it's rather unfortunate as well. While they're dropping the charges for the self-defense, the brother's still getting a charge for the felony possession of firearm. That to me is crazy, because if he didn't have that firearm, he might be dead. He might got choked out to death. So that's one thing we need to examine, is these laws that say you can't even own a weapon to protect yourself in that situation. I'm not sure if the brother was a felon or what. I'm pretty sure that's why he got the charge for the firearm. But to me, that's ridiculous. If you served your time, you should be able to. And I think you hit on this earlier. I think you hit a post where you said this. You should be able to defend yourself if you serve your time. And half of the felons here, more than half the felons, are simply drug charges. They're not violent criminals. They're not rapists and murderers. They're people who had made a bad decision with some drugs. They may even been addicts, not even necessarily distributors, distribution of, drugs. Just people who had a problem, who needed actually help instead of being locked up. So to me, to have this perspective, and a lot of the thin blue line people, man, they make this excuse that oh, we have these laws. If you follow the laws, as to be unfallible. But we know different areas are policed different than other areas, right? If they go to any, just like they can go to Harlem and catch a bunch of drug addicts and lock them up, they can go to any country club in America and catch a bunch of addicts who just happen to have money. you know. So I really want to hit on this fact that you should be allowed, as long as you're not convicted of a violent felony, to be able to get your rights back and own a weapon. That is ridiculous. And you spoke to the warning shot thing is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. You just saying you've never went to the range, nobody's ever taught you anything. In the leg shot, when I hear people say the leg shot or the arm shot, like people are John Wick out here with the Kimbo guns shooting legs and arms, that
They think it's a cowboy western.
yeah, the movies are ruining people. Please, for God's sake, go to the range, get some basic firearm training, because it may save your life one day. You're not supposed to shoot at people's legs and arms. You know, and the ricochet is a big thing. You can kill a kid down the street from a ricochet. You know, they say about the New Year's Eve, you get these warnings every year on New Year's Eve. Don't be firing to the air, because that bullet has to come down. You know, so we have to take these things into perspective when we talking about this. And then the great thing about social media, man, is that, you know, it gives voices to people like me. It gives voices to people like you, you know, but we also have the sense to not comment on things that we're not knowledgeable about. I think a lot of people just comment on things that they have no clue what is going on. You know,
Right.
it's a great thing and it's a terrible thing at the same time. It's what you call a catch-22. It is nothing wrong with saying, let me educate myself on this subject and I'll get back to you. Let me read up on this subject. I'll get back to you. Let me go to the
Well,
range and practice, and I'll get back. I don't have to
well,
comment on
you
everything.
know, we've been taught that our feelings in a lot of ways, trump the reality of what's been going on. And the funny part about it is that's not, it doesn't matter left, right, up the middle. It's not a political issue as much as it is a lot of biases. It's going to be harder for a person that is anti-gun. It's going to be harder for a person that is anti-gun to even look at such things a lot of times in good faith and feel like, well, that person had the right to defend their lives, or this person should have done it another way because that's what I feel like I would do, even though I've never been to the gun range, right? Some people can't remove their biases of skin color to say, oh, regardless of the color of the person shooting, they had the right to self-defense. I would liken this story is not going to go as viral, but just as much as it took people to be objective with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and I'm talking specifically tactical. I'm not talking about what people feel like, oh, he shouldn't have been there. Oh, he crossed state lines. Oh, what about his mama? I'm not talking about all this other stuff. I'm talking about from a simple, tactical, in this moment, does this person as a human have a right to defend themselves against somebody that is actively and violently attacking them? That is the question that has to be answered, right? So the same people that didn't have some of those biases and were rooting for Kyle Rittenhouse would turn around and look at Taylor and his girlfriend and be like, oh, he shouldn't even had a gun. That wasn't fair that she protected her man that was literally getting his head beat into the concrete. It's
I'm in a rear naked choke, right? That's a death move. It's over with, right? I don't think people realize this too, that when men fight, somebody might die. They had recently had a case in New York where a guy was sucker punched, fell down, hit his head, he's dead, and they had a trial for manslaughter behind that. Like, people think, I don't know if people take it as maybe more lightly than it should be, but a confrontation can easily end in death.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, particularly in grown men.
Absolutely. And not only that, I'm still trying to figure out, and I know that, I've only been able to find that part of the video, like what we just watched, But we'll never know now because Santee is no longer alive. But at the point that the gun was removed from the altercation and the girlfriend has the gun and she is clearly trying to be the peacemaker in that situation, she doesn't even want her boyfriend to have the gun, right? So the threat that Santee may have thought was there is now removed, right?
Right.
At this point, what is Santee actually trying to do? Is he trying to make a citizen arrest? Is he trying to hold him there? Is he trying to just continue to fight him? Like, what was the actual motive? Because if that's the case, in some ways, like, I have the ability to defend myself if you are still trying to whatever Santee was trying to do at that point. We really don't know. I guess just still fighting it out until the guy was subdued. Like, what was his actual objective? Because people were saying, oh, he was trying to fight him to get the gun away. He saw the gun and now he saw the gun and now he was scared for his life. And that's why Santee was fighting him. Okay, cool. Let's go with that. And then once the gun is removed, now what? Now, what exactly is happening here?
Exactly.
And am I supposed to sit here and just continue to suffer this beating when the threat you alleged is why you jumped onto me in the first place? And like I said, some of this information is still a little shaky. We don't have all these answers because did Santee follow him outside? Like, if Taylor went to his truck to get the gun first, did Santee turn and follow him? Was his girlfriend still in the gas station? So maybe Taylor felt like he had to protect his girlfriend and make sure his girlfriend got out safely as well. Like, it's just so many answers that we don't have. And so we're only able to go with what we're seeing here in that video clip.
And what is it? A 15, 20, 23-second
It's
clip.
not long. It's
So
just not long.
it's so hard to analyze situations from such a small snapshot. We don't know these people knew each other. We don't know if they encountered each other before any of this thing. And that's kind of also the problem that we have in this age where we get these small clips, these small glimpses of situations, not the complete frame, because you have to have that complete frame because you can tell. That's why motive is such a huge thing in trials, because it's like, what were you thinking in that time, right? If I could prove that, I was fearful for my life, I may have had an encounter with this person before. They may have been following me by a dark alley. I may have PTSD from a situation prior, but we are never know because we don't get that full snapshot, right? And I think that's kind of purposeful as well. I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that because then again, we can't overlook that. I just tweeted about this. I think maybe yesterday I said that I've been noticing more instances of police brutality coming across my timeline. Is that just because of what, Elon Musk is over there doing at Twitter, or is it because we're going into midterm elections and now we're doing this energy harvesting thing that always seems to happen around election time? And even with this, I have to admit that even though based on that information that we were able to see, and I do believe that that was self-defense, I have to wonder, where is the longer format of the video? Why don't we see from the moment that both of them walked out to their car? Also, obviously, this is going to go into race, right? You have a black guy and a white guy. And so that's going to fan certain flames. And so that is a question that I also have. I mean, we don't know. This could very much be motivating this tug of war that we usually see heighten around this time of year.
Yeah, big facts. And salute to everybody who's here. Make sure you guys hit the share button, man. We're trying to get this out. We know it's a little short time frame and kind of impromptu, but make sure y'all hit that share button. But once again, like you said, I think you hit on the biggest fact right there is that we don't know. It's so much that we don't know. It's almost a puzzle. We're trying to put the puzzle together, the pieces together. But obviously it was enough where though they decided not to prosecute this young woman. Now, like you said, it may be they didn't want to prosecute her because we're in a midterm election year and you don't want that whole perspective, that whole visual of a black woman being prosecuted for protecting herself, particularly if it's in an area where the black vote may be bigger. You know, depending on where you're at, the black vote can switch, right? They may not care as much in North Dakota, but if you're in Philadelphia and this happens, and I'm not sure what area this happened in, I should have looked.
This was in Kansas City. I don't know the demographics of Kansas City.
Kansas City pretty black. But that may be a factor into why they chose not to prosecute. You know, we have these cities nowadays where they're not cashless bonds. They're just letting people out, you know, on their own recognizance a lot of times. And that's a political move as well. You know, it's funny how a lot of these things that they're doing are related to the criminal element, but they equate it as a win for black people. You know what I'm saying? And we know in these areas that's mainly kind of, you know, purple, I want to say, that part of the way they try to get the vote or whatever is they try to equate like criminal activity with black people.
That's so weird. That's so
Yeah.
weird. And we just allow it and be so cool with it. Like, even I was thinking about this earlier today, like constantly allowing ourselves to be equated to like the very poor. Yes, you do have black people that make up larger portions of the you know, poorer demographic, but you also have a lot of people that are a lot of black people that are also in the middle class as well. And so it's almost like they try to force the narrative of who we are onto us. And it's just a really weird like paradox, right? Because, you know, a lot of this, like, you know, you don't really know when you're younger. And I feel like maybe not just specifically for black people. I'm not exactly sure, but a lot of times I feel like we come into things just because, oh, well, this is the tradition, this is how it's done, this is how our parents were. But to kind of see, you know, the upbringing that I was raised in, and even the life that I'm kind of blessed to live now, and to see some of the narratives that are being pushed on me and forced onto me by social media. And I have empathy, right? I have empathy. I've always worked in the inner cities. I've always worked with like nonprofits and stuff like that. But so that is not to say that I do not care, you know, about certain struggles or certain problems, or not even that I can't identify with them to a certain extent, but this pressure to like, you're a part of this group, you're a part of this specific demographic, take this issue as your own. And it's like, I don't know, it's just very weird. Like, even now it's this thing that you had these black women on Twitter trying to push this thing that black women have never been afforded womanhood and femininity. And I'm like, who haven't been afforded womanhood and femininity? I've been feminine all my life. And it's like, but I'm supposed to pick up the mantle and mule for women that I don't even know. I don't know where this narrative is coming from. I believe that it's very racist propaganda that we're being told is progressive, and it's being pushed on us and handed to us. And it's like, I'm just supposed to take this message because this person supposedly looks like me. Obviously, we don't have the same experiences. So I don't know, man. Things just getting very weird.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. That's what they call it, the racism of low expectations, right? Where you're supposed to just fall in line, accept whatever's given to you, whatever narrative they come up with, whatever little mainstream progressive thing that's supposed to like fit your, the no voting, no vlucking, you're just supposed to accept this. This is your culture, shaking your booty and going to jail is your culture,
So you really sitting here telling me twerking will not get you to the polls? Like that's not like it's not appealing. It's not working.
Yeah, I've seen it all. I used to live in a strip club, bro. This is not impressive. But I'm just saying in general, it's just terrible that that's what they equate our culture, our sensibilities. You never see this with any other demographic, I believe. I've never seen a bunch of people in the hijabs, you know what I'm saying, dancing around a campfire, like you just never see this type of marketing to any other demographic.
Well, I don't know. Jill Biden and Joe was eating tacos recently, so I don't know. They might be working their way up to
ice
it.
cream, yeah, get some ice cream
with
like
these other demographics. So
yeah, so you may see that, but all right, I think we beat that horse to death. Let's move on to our next one, which people may not think it is a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal, particularly in the space that we're in. So you had the Sandy Hook families, right? They got the $1 billion judgment, which they're never going to see in their life, but it happened, right? From Alex Jones, for the so-called misinformation that was put out, right? So now those same families who got that $1 billion judgment are now seeking a $2.75 trillion judgment. Who got 2.75 trillion? I know Alex Jones ain't got 2.5. But anyway, they're seeking that. To me, it gets to the point where it's more of a punishment than anything else because they know they're not getting this. It's kind of a dog whistle to me. But I want to hear your perspective on this. Being in the alternative media, you having a pretty big following yourself, is this more so an attack on alternative media, or is this, this family actually seeking judgment and vendetta for what they perceive as a wrong? What do you think?
I absolutely believe they are trying to send a message. I mean, that number alone is absolutely absurd. It is absurd. And it would make more sense if you saw this equally and you saw mainstream media being held for the lies that, I mean, who was held for who was held responsible for the whole the Russian disinformation narrative, like Russia, the Russia hole. We dealt with that for years. I mean, possibly millions of the dollars, taxpayers' dollars were spent, trying to follow up on a case that nothing was really found. The most we got was, what was that guy that went in for mishandling of money? What's his name?
I know you're talking about he embezzled guy.
Yeah, it was like Trump's accountant or something.
Yeah,
that's literally probably the most we got out of that whole sham, right?
Right.
And so even when we look at COVID, there is documented records of Joe Biden, Fauci, so many people saying, Rachel Maddow, if you take this, you will not get sick. If you take this, you will not die. If you take this, you will not spread COVID. This is possibly one of the biggest crimes of humanity in our lifetime. And I want to be clear, I don't intend to make this some huge fancy whataboutism, but we can't deny looking at the absurd amount he's being asked to pay, right? Because I wouldn't argue that if he's found guilty of this misinformation that caused the family great harm and you were able to prove that, because I didn't actually watch the case. But if you were able to prove that and you are charged or you lose the case, That is way more understandable than this $1 trillion number that is just so outrageous and absurd that it looks like a vendetta. It looks like they're trying to send a message.
Word, word. And the biggest thing, the way you know there's trying to send a message is, where the hell is the 2.75 trillion gonna come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, who has $1 trillion? Who's
His
the richest guy in
grandkids gonna be,
yeah, where is it? They're never gonna see that money ever. Alex Jones is gonna be dead in the grave. Nobody ever's gonna see that money. So you know that it has to be something greater than that. And to me, it's a scare tactic. You hit on the Rona. I'm gonna use the Rona. I ain't gonna say the whole thing. You might get us canceled. You're supposed to be uncanceled, Ron. But if you look at that and you look and you see, it's like, who is that targeting, right? Who is that supposed to scare? Alex Jones and his lawyers know that they're not going to give you that money. You're never going to see that money. It's supposed to scare people like me and you. Because when we see that number, we're supposed to be like, yo, I'm never, ever going against the grain. You know, one of these things I harp on is incrementalism, right? One of these things they do is they do bluff tactics, I like to call them, and they see how many people they can get to do a certain amount of things. If people take, they don't really account for like 1% of population, 2% of the population adhering to something. But in the long scheme of things, that's a lot. If you can get, what is it, millions upon millions of podcasters out here now, if you can get 1% to be like, you know what, I'm not going to talk about that because of what happened to this dude. You kind of incrementalism. Now that's going to feed. Now that's going to go into the system. Now more people and less people are going to feed into this misinformation nonsense and not talking about things they want to talk about, right? Not provide you that alternative media, that alternative perspective. So we gotta think about things like that. And to me, that's what I see right here. Like, they're basically trying to send a signal to people like me, to people like you, to people out here who may be podcasting and saying alternative things, who are actually right during most of the COVID stuff. We like batting 1,000, putting up Barry Bonds numbers is what we're doing out here, right? But you may be scared to do that because of what you just seen happen. So to me,
Right.
you have to think about that. We have to think about the long term. I say a lot of people, they have 100-year plans. These people have 100-year plans. That's one thing I harp on about, like, if you look at the conservative movement, like, for example, right? And they're harping on right now, oh, the school boards are taking over. Hollywood is, even though it's probably 50-50 in terms of, our ideology, all of Hollywood, all of the school boards, 90% of them lean this way. Why is that? Because these people have put people in place. They use the system called incrementalism, where they've taken over institutions by putting 1 and 2 here, by, scaring 2 and 3% of the population.
Playing the long game.
The long game. And I don't think a lot of us can see the long game. We can't see the forest through the trees, and we have to start doing that. This is a culture war we in. People like to harp on a hot war. You're in a culture war. You've been in a culture war for probably 30 years. And you have to get your message out there. Otherwise, you're going to be screwed, And even this YouTube thing we on right now, like, we can just easily be taken out. But we have to keep it into perspective that we have to build alternative media sources. We have to build with each other. That's why I think it was important for me to reach out to you. Although we may differ on some things, we're still kind of in the same space where we're trying to purvey truth. We're trying to purvey, freedom advocates. We're trying to pervade things like the 2A, which is very important to our survival. And we just got to build with each other and realize that we're going to be under attack. This is like I said, a culture war we're in. So that's what I got on that, man. Like, this is just a signal. It's a signal to be like, shut up and dribble, LeBron, Yeah. So you got anything else on that?
Nah, that's definitely what they want.
Definitely. And which is kind of cool because it rolls into the next topic that we got right now, which we just had a vote for this committee, the CDC committee. I guess it's the panel that makes up a lot of consists of a lot of doctors, physicians, doctors, you want to call them. I'm not sure they are, but they voted to add the MRNA vax to the children's schedule. I think the children's schedule is what, in the 30s right now. And I'm not even sure that includes the yearly flu shot. It's ridiculous. I think when I was a kid, it may have been like 10 shots. They're up to like in the 30s of shots. But you had some states recently push back, which of course we're in midterm season. So that has to be a political. These dirty red states don't want to give your kids shots. But anyway, I'm gonna throw it out to you. What do you think? Do you think it's an attack specifically on children with this? Because that's the easiest money you can get, right? If you add it to this schedule, every time your kid gets to register for school, he has to get these shots, right? So what do you think? Just a money play or what?
It could absolutely be a money play, just for the simple fact that a lot of parents now and a lot of people, adults, I should say, are starting to tap out. Even people that were under the spell that have gotten however many boosters are like, yeah, nah, I'm off that, right? And
Right.
so if Pfizer and Moderna that have all of these leftover shots, or that are working on the next, boosters, or whatever that case may be, if they want to continue a certain level of, money supply, then what better way than to work with the government to get it into the schools? Now you have a guaranteed customer base. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. And so, because at this moment, when we've seen people fainting on soccer fields, passing out while singing for their school choir, we're seeing heart medication being introduced for children, and we're seeing sudden death ticking up, and these things that are hard to explain. We're seeing what do you call these, blood clots, and everything else is going on. I don't see any logical reason, okay? Any logical reason why they would be suggesting this for children.
Exactly.
Not only did the Florida general surgeon recently come out and say they're no longer recommending these shots for specifically males from about 18 to 39 years old. There was also a report that just came out from a country from overseas. It's not coming to me what country it was right now, so I know it's hard for me to introduce this information, not knowing the name of the country, but also saying that they were no longer going to promote the shots for children. And so it's no logical reason that I could see why they would be doing this. I think it's absurd. I think you should get your There's No Freedom Without Medical Freedom tea at rondamiri.com, and also the anti-status tea that the lovely D Webb also has on tonight at rondamiri.com as well. Cheap plug. Just to throw that in there. Yeah, but I just, it's if the parents cool with it and the parents allow it.
I don't know about that. Finland and Sweden are the countries that didn't recommend it. But
you said Sweden and who else? Because I was about to look it up.
Finland. And if you even look at the stats, you can go to the CDC website and look at the stats. Your kid has a better chance of dying on the school bus ride to school than they do from COVID. It's just a fact. You know what I'm saying? It's right there with lightning. So, to point that out and then look at what they're promoting, not to mention this thing doesn't stop the spread nor stop you from getting it. So what exactly are you stopping at this point? Yet myocarditis, I want to say, is like between 6% and 25% death for people in that age bracket. This is nothing to play with. Myocarditis in youth is nothing to play with in a developing heart of a developing body of a young person. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be a doctor to know that. But yet they're recommending these shots. It makes zero sense. And to me, it's just an attack. And even if you look at the places right now that have already implemented this policy that the school age children, which they're pushing back because a lot of parents ain't gonna play with their kids, man. That's one thing that's gonna be like the last final front to me. But DC, New Orleans, places like Boston, New York, if you look at the demographics, guess what? Especially if you go to New Orleans and DC, A lot of little black kids, especially DC, you know, and these are the areas where you're promoting this, you know. I guarantee private schools aren't going to implement anything like this, you know. And if you look at the demographics of private schools, guess what it's going to be? So we have to take this into cognitive, you know, cognitive and realize what's going on, man. That this is an attack. This is an attack on children. I have a very soft spot for children, because you know this is our future. These are people we have to protect. These are the people that are helpless. You know, if you want to point that out. So to me, it's not even a question of whether this is to help these children, because you see, it's not. The stats don't back it up. Any other flu season, we were sending our kids to school every flu season, every year, and the flu is way more, the regular influenza, way more deadly than COVID-19. But you're sending your kids every year, you know, didn't care. Measles going around, mumps, you know, all of that, rubella.
I've never had the flu shot. I've never had the flu. So
Exactly. You know, and then we can go into the all alternative things that when it happens when you mass vaccinate people, because we all know medicine is something that's supposed to be a custom. It's not a one size fits all thing. So if
exactly.
you're more susceptible, so they say you got something sickle cell, you got diabetes, where the odds may be a little bit less that when you get this, it might then maybe okay, you can get the shot, but that's a personal decision. That should not be a mandate. But we know this already. These are things that me and you know. We're just trying to get this out there to the mainstream that you know they're playing a lot of games out here. And honestly, if you still listen to CDC, I don't really know. You need to get your head examined because they've been wrong. They've been batting under 200. The Mendoza line in baseball, they've been batting under 200 for quite a while. You know, mask, no mask. You know, shot, no shot. You know, whatever they say. You know, so 6 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, whatever the fuck, whatever the distance they saying today. You know what I'm saying? So we can see that they're greatly influenced by opinion as well. That's why I tell people like, while you may not think you're powerful, these schools can't survive with 10% of their school population not showing up on the first day of school.
Right.
Right. You could change everything just by getting with your neighbors, getting with the people in your community and saying that we've had enough. You know, we're not doing that because money talks at the end of the day. They get paid for every student in that seat. Every student in that seat, they get money. Which they're trying to change that with the the school choice laws, right? Whereas though that money comes to the parent instead of to that school system.
And that's why it's so confusing to me when I bring up homeschool and people gatekeep and they're like, oh, no, 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 but the schools need those funds. But I'm like, if you got less students there, the teachers have more time and you still have an applicable number of resources. So, what's the real reason why they don't want those students leaving? Like, that's a question that I need to get to the bottom of.
Word. We seen record numbers. I think we hit on that on one podcast years ago, like a year ago, where we hit is a record number of homeschooled kids now. You know, that's a great thing. That's a great thing. I recommend everybody get your kids out of these schools, man, until they decide to do right. And a lot of people point to the fact that social skills are not developed, you know, when you're outside of the school. That's one thing I greatly hear a lot. And it's like, have y'all
what else can they say? Literally, what else can they say besides making people try to look weird? Because we definitely know homeschool kids can read better, their math is better, they're overall better adjusted. So what they're just gonna try to make them seem weird, and even that is just not the case. Homeschool, well, I would say not the case for all, but look at all the freaking nerds or socially awkward people that go to public school. So it's just a very lame, just tired, stupid excuse. And a lot of homeschool children that are homeschooled have siblings and they also participate in other like activities and hobbies and things like that. It's the same way they try to shame, you know, they try to, anytime you go outside of the mainstream media, it's the same thing. They try to find some type of way to shame you, right? Like, so it's just another version of that. Anything that you do that adds any type of self, like a self-autonomy, independent, anything that goes outside of the mainstream, what you're supposed to be allowed to do. People are going to try to, some of these things are just now becoming more acceptable, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they try to make you bad for wanting to feel in rural areas. Like who knew wanting to have grass and fresh air, people would try to make you feel bad about. I mean, it's like ridiculous. They literally try to make you feel like you're an evil person for not wanting to take public transportation or live in a walkable city. And we know what a lot of those walkable cities in America usually look like, right? It's okay
Right.
that not everybody wants to do that. It's okay that not everybody wants to send their child to public school. It's okay that some of us want the option to protect ourselves and don't want to sit there and wait on a freaking police officer if they do show up. It's okay that some of us want to grow our own food or stock our own food because we don't freaking trust like what they're doing with the food supply now. And like all of these other instances of us just wanting to prep ourselves and have our stuff together.
Exactly. And I hate this term too. You do something, you try to start to get into hunting, you start getting into fishing, more outdoorsy stuff. Like you said, we're going to rural area. That's some white people shit. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, that's some survival shit. You know what I mean? That's some you should have been doing anyway. And y'all rich holders need to get on y'all job, man. I had to block a couple people. Only handle it. But we gotta change the narrative, yo. And outside of that, it is so many ways to get social skills. If we look at the kids that are coming out of public school systems right now, half of them don't have social skills. They've been in mass, they've been muzzled for 2 years, right? They've been on virtual learning for 2 years, right? They've been not even interacting with each other. So it's so many alternatives actually that may be better for these children, right? Where you
Right.
have sports leagues, you have martial arts they can get into. You have these camps, you have the scouts, things they can get into, which may teach them actually some life skills outside of public schools. And honestly, as a public school graduate to myself, it's gladiator school. You know what I'm saying? Particularly if you grow up in a place where the public school system may not even be, on level. It may be below state guidelines, right? So now you're in there with a bunch of people who don't care. First and foremost, the teachers, right? The educators don't care about students. They're there for a check. Secondly, the students, because of the environment they're in and not getting the guidance they're supposed to get, half of them not even there to learn. They're there to either whoop some ass or, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen so many rumbles and brawls and stuff like that. It's just not an area that's cognizant to learning. It's not an advocate of learning. You're not going to learn much in these areas, right?
Let me give you a little pushback on these teachers. I do agree that you have maybe a small segment that's there for a check, but it's very, very, very hard for me to believe that out of all the hurdles and the things that you have to go through to be a teacher and the things you have to put up with to be a teacher, that people would go and do that just for $30,000. Like I just don't see it. And if I could have the choice of teaching at a private school where it'll be less hassle, I would probably have to deal with less behavioral issues. The parents have to pay, or the student is there on a voucher. So even the child is going to have a certain mentality, usually coming into that school. So with everything about that, I don't think that the average teacher is coming in there like, yeah, I'm just here for a check. It's not enough of a check. It's not a big enough check. What I do think is more likely to happen is that I would say I'll say that example for another day. But what I think is more likely to happen is that you have people that come into this system. This is another system of the state. They come in this system all, big-eyed and bushy-tailed and coming in here thinking that they're going to help kids and this is going to be great. And every single thing about this system over time just sucks the life and the creativity and the energy out of them. It starts with, first of all, how the schools look. Most of them in the inner cities look like prisons. Okay, let's start there. The very structured, can't go against the grain, listening to bills all day, go to this class, to this class. We got to prepare for the state test. We really can't take a look into students' interests and their passions because we have to prepare for these tests. Test. That's the only thing that I have to focus on. I have 20 to 30 students that I am responsible for. The administrators barely help me, barely back me up. Like, it's just so much that goes on to these schools. And then we get into the violence, the physical violence, the sexual abuse, right? All of the public school system within itself is every ugly thing about the state amplified.
Word.
It's just there. It's like a just an incubator, just festering of everything that's wrong with the government. That's what public schooling is. And so I absolutely think that you have some teachers that know or they feel, if I don't care, nobody will. And I'm going to go into this because I love children, because I have a soft spot for children and try to make the most of it. But a lot of them get in there and they are confined to this system and a way it works. And a lot of times it's very hard to break outside of the red tape and the oversight and everything else that comes with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I should clarify. Not necessarily there for a check, but maybe there for that security. And depending on what state you're in, right? Depending on what area you're in. If you're in a big city with a good, school board, the check is a little bit better, but you get the 3 months off through the summer and things like that. So it's very dependent on what area you're in. But I think it's more so the security of this union job where it's so hard. And I've been in a couple of unions throughout the years. It's so hard to get. You basically gotta snort a line of coke and you know what I mean, off your boss's desk to get fired. But they still might bring you back. So more so the security, right, that you're in. And I agree wholeheartedly too. A lot of these schools, man, they dealing with situations where they don't even have the supplies to even begin to teach your kids, right? They're sending a list home. Every year we get a list. It's like, we need and we're not talking extra stuff like colored pencils and we want to do this. We're talking like paper, printer paper. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are you not getting printer paper?
Do you watch Abbott Elementary?
No, I don't watch that junk.
Oh, you don't watch it?
Nah. Must be good though if you watch it.
I like it because so the show is about a public school, elementary school in Philly. And what I like about it is that it's not overdone. It's not super social justice warrior-y. They aren't trying to like push a lot of the stuff that we've seen pushed in, recent shows. And it's very like real. It's very relatable. If you've ever went to a public school, if you ever went to or worked in a public school, the attention to detail, the dry humor, I mean, even from the way the teachers dress, even like the glasses sitting on one of the teachers' heads, it's just every little thing is like, this just feels so real. And it deals with some of the issues of the schools being, underfunded and things like that. And it's from a very kind of like comical, witty perspective. And so, as far as sitcoms go, it is one of the better sitcoms that I have seen in the last few years, because it's not, I really can't explain it. It's still a modern show, don't get me wrong. So you're gonna have like some of these funny, somewhat still stereotypical things that happen, but it's not like ick. Like, it's not so overdone where it feels like they are virtue signaling, I should say. And so it's a very interesting show, because they show it kind of like from the teacher's perspective of like some of the things they go through and some of the things they go through in the schools, and the characters are like all quirky and have like they're just different little personalities and stuff like that. And so I can't get into a lot of TV, especially sitcoms, because it's just so overdone.
It's
It's
like a
just
quota.
so
Like you gotta have we gotta have the Asian kid, we gotta have the LGBT kid, we gotta be extra about things, and it's just media these days is just so hard. I tried
right.
to watch that Texas Chainsaw, that new one, but then
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, and here it goes, the school shooting scene. It's like, oh my God, they're pushing the propaganda. So yeah, I feel you, but if it's something that you can actually get into, that's not, and to be honest, man, I think cable and stuff is leading the charge in that. But it's so hard to get into a lot of this stuff, because particularly if it's on Netflix, it's like, oh my God, here we go with the quota, like you can almost plot it. It's like, all right, we got to have this character, we got to have that character. It's nothing very original now. But if it hits into like what's actually going on with teachers these days, that's pretty dope. You know what I mean? I got quite a few educators in my family, so I get the firsthand perspective of what's going on. That's why I harp on the culture war aspect of things, because when I talk to them, they relay these things, you know what I mean? Or they're post on Facebook, whatever, where you're there, they're in 5th grade and they got their kids are talking about non-binary and who's bisexual. You know what I'm saying? It's like 5th grade, bro.
I was talking to a 14-year-old the other day, and she told me that her school district is considering, or there are talks about them installing litter boxes in the restrooms, because there are now students identifying as cats. I BS you not. This was totally unprompted. I did not ask, hey, our kids do no. Like, the discussion started because we were talking about, she was saying that how she thinks her teacher is on the spectrum. And her teacher, she was explaining her teacher's diagnosis to us. And I was like, we're basically like, well, why do you need to know your teacher's diagnosis? How is this relevant to you? And I was just basically saying, like, don't get so caught up in these labels, because everybody wants to be this thing and make it kind of like this special thing when you can just exist. You can just be who you are. It doesn't have to be some bullet checkpoint list of, I'm Black, I'm LGBT, I'm on the spectrum, I identify as no, you know what I mean? And that's how the conversation started. And the next thing I know, she's like, yeah, they're really thinking about introducing these they're called litter boxes, right? Am I saying that right? Litter boxes for
Yeah, I believe
cats.
so. I seen that same article. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so this is a real thing. Like, people are really like, this is a real consideration. She's like, yes. And I'm like, at this point, I just don't put anything past anybody. It's so The first problem was, and I seen this coming years ago, and I would suspect that people, much older than me or that have been in the game longer than me may have seen this coming even longer ago, right? But when I start recently seeing uh, people, when I started recently seeing people make their mental illness a personality trait, I'm like, yeah, this is another big pharma play. Like, this is gonna go too far. When people are putting their diagnosis in their Twitter bios, when people are introducing themselves, are making that a part of their personality of, well, this is my diagnosis. It's making people feel special to a degree that's removing the things that actually add depth to their personality, right? I mean, maybe some people would, but I wouldn't want to be remembered as the person that has autism or the person that is handicapped or the person that is, you know, whatever. If anything, I would want to be the person that, okay, I was these things, but this is what I was able to add to the world. This is what I was able to overcome and still do. This is what I was able to present. This is my talent or my skill set, right? And so when we start getting away from that and children thinking they're special just because of their diagnosis, it's literally catering to mental illness, it's catering to victimhood, which actually promotes big pharma.
Exactly. Victimhood mentality, yo, where it's almost a sin to be strong. It's almost a sin to want to be strong and take care and not want to be diagnosed or have these different labels. And honestly, there are things that you can help, right? These are things that you can improve about yourself. These are things that you can go to therapy about. These are things if the fat phobic thing, right? That's a whole different topic. I'm not even gonna go into it because we'll be here for an hour. But these are not personality traits.
Right.
These are not personality traits. Stop purveying this. You see it all the time when people put in their bio. I seen it the other day, autism, autistic and great. It's like, bro, why are you even putting that there? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just you. You're whatever your first name is, bro. Autistic is not part of your description. This should not be a descriptor for you. You should be creative. You should be strong. You should be capable. Whatever you are. Why is this diagnosis part of your personality traits? So that the point where you want to put it next to your name, that's mental illness in itself, and we got to recognize that, But I ain't gonna hold you too long, yo. You hear me? My voice is going out. It's about to be a wrap. I need some tea. D-Web needs some tea. So, Rhonda, if you got anything you want to plug, if you got anything that's going on, and hopefully we can make these irregular things. Have been dope. Building with you. We're gonna try to make this a regular thing with more promotion. So get more bodies in here, of course, on the regular. So that's one thing I want to look for. But you got anything?
So all of my information is over at rondamary.com. There you can grab merch. You can find out where to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And also, ladies, if you need help concealing your firearm, so this is after you've trained, your basic safety, but you were just looking to keep and maintain your unique style and the way you're dressing while carrying your firearm every day with you, everywhere you go over to rondamary.com. Check out my concealed carry guide where I give you tips and techniques. rondamary.com.
Word. Get you one of these dope ass shirts. Anti-status. And yeah, make sure y'all check us out, man. We'll be live Sunday with our regular pod, the Harsh Reality Pod, with my normal panel, man. Shout out to my people, man. Love y'all much. Also make sure y'all check out the last episode I did yesterday, which probably why my voice is going out on top of everything else. The season's changing, kick my ass. But make sure y'all check out the episode yesterday I did with Ahmad Lathan. Great interview with a young brother. I want to try to build with the youth more, man. I think we get a lot of things where we're trying to compete with youth and calling them names and all this other stuff. So I kind of want to get to the point where we're actually reaching out and we're building, and we're bringing these people in, man, so we can share knowledge and share understanding and things like that. So I think it was a dope discussion. So make sure y'all check that out. And like I said, we're gonna figure out a day where we want to make these things a regular, and we'll do it better on the promotion. We'll get that out earlier to you guys so you can come in and be part of it, you know. And I'll be talking to my host here, my co-host here, in terms of what she want to do in the future. So that's all I got. You got anything else on Pardon?
That's it.
That's it. So on behalf of the Harsh Reality, we got Uncanceled Culture. I love that name too. I gotta make a banner behind it. But I gotta say peace. It was wonderful talking to you, Rhonda, man. Stay beautiful, stay black, stay strapped. You know what I mean? Peace out.
I like that. I might have to put that on the shirt. Bye, y'all.
Word.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.